really saved very cheaply from malaria right now.
Okay, we just had a situation, I don't remember what it was, just a few years ago, where we had a massive heat wave in Europe. 35,000 people in France alone died. Another 2,000 people died from this heat wave in England. If we don't stop global warming, won't things just get worse and worse and more people will die just from the heat?
Glenn, that's exactly true, and that's of course what Al Gore tells us. With global warming, you're going to see more heat deaths. But what most people don't tell us is we're also going to see much less cold deaths. And actually, many more people die from cold than from heat. So for England alone, you mentioned the number 2,000 people. Actually, that's what we expect will die from more heat waves in 2080. But what we have to remember is that 20,000 fewer will die from cold each year in 2080. Now, I'm not sitting and saying we should just go for global warming, but I'm saying we need to know both.
Okay. You started something called the Copenhagen Consensus, and this was a group of experts from the UN, economists, et cetera, and you prioritize all of the world's biggest problems and where we would be most effective in spending our money. AIDS was number one, right?
Yes. And basically the point is, again, to say we have a tendency to bark up the wrong tree. We worry intensely about climate change, but the point is we can do very little good at very high cost. Let's focus on where we can actually do a lot of good. If we care about this planet, if we care about its environment, shouldn't we do where we can do the most good first? What these Nobel laureates basically told us was if we spend our money on HIV/AIDS, we can do $40 worth of good for every dollar. If we spend it on Kyoto, we can only do 30 cents. Let's do the $40 first.
Give me the top 5 quickly, and where does global warming fall on that list?
Basically, what they told us was it was HIV/AIDS, malnutrition, free trade, malaria, and agricultural research. Those are things that we can do cheaply and do an immense amount of impact in this world right now, and also for future generations. Kyoto came down at the bottom, not because climate change is not real, but simply because the way we tackle it through Kyoto is very expensive and a very poor way of helping the world.
Bjorn, thanks. Coming up, Al Gore and his inconvenient truths, plus scientists silenced for questioning the threat of global warming.
I know that I've had several friends who have essentially been told that if you speak out on climate change, you must do so as an independent citizen. If you do so through our organization or through our institution, you will essentially be fired.
And later, how the media is feeding you fear.
I'm going to tell you something about the media and global warming that you don't hear real often. It's not all your fault, okay?
More of Exposed, the Climate of Fear, in a minute. You know, it seems when something as factual as science moves into the world of politics and media, problems always follow. Global warming isn't any exception. With billions of dollars of funding at risk and the world's attention in sharp focus, some say there's no room left for dissent. But how can you stop scientists from debating? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? There is one solution, of course: belittle, insult, and sometimes threaten the lives of those opposing voices until they're snuffed out and can no longer be heard.
You know what? The science is in, the debate's over.
The scientific dialogue is compromised.
The debate on global warming is over.
It's not.
Well, if there was only one side and it was absolutely correct, that side should say, please interview these stupid idiots so we can cut them to ribbons.
You're really being told your job's in jeopardy if you speak out.
If you dare to speak out, oh, you don't care about the planet, you don't care about the children or the future.
Scientific consensus has been overturned over and over again throughout history. From eugenics in the 1940s to global cooling of the 1970s. And every generation has groups that think that they're so right, they shouldn't be questioned. But today, with warming, the heat is really getting turned up.
We're at a level of hysteria, and to me it's astonishing.
I think those people are entitled to their views, but in many cases it's not the scientific consensus.
David Legates is a state climatologist in Delaware, and he teaches at the university. He's not part of the mythical climate consensus. In fact, Legates believes that we oversimplify climate by just blaming greenhouse gases. One day, he received a letter from the governor saying his views do not concur with those of the administration. So if he wants to speak out, it must be as an individual, not as a state climatologist. So, essentially, he can have the title of state climatologist unless he's talking about his views on climate? Confused? Here's a demonstration.
We have need for sanitation.
Delaware state climatologist.
The biggest misconception is that climate change is going to be dramatic and it's going to be extreme.
Some guy with a Delaware license plate.
So I am charged as state climatologist to speak out on those issues. But I make it clear that I do not represent the views of the state.
I have no frickin' idea either. But what could possibly happen if you speak out with the wrong title?
I've had several friends who have essentially been told that if you speak out on climate change, you will essentially be fired.
Meanwhile, in Oregon, the state climatologist George Taylor is under fire for his take on global warming.
Most of the climate change we've seen up until now has been as a result of natural variations.
Solely because of this opinion, Governor Ted Kolongoski wants Taylor to be stripped of his title.
I just think that there has to be somebody that says that this is the state position on this.
We reached out to Taylor. He said only this. Being skeptical about the effects of human-caused greenhouse gases on global climate variations can threaten one's long-term job security. He's choosing his words very carefully. These days, it seems you have to. Why?
No serious scientist, no peer-reviewed scientist is saying that, okay?
Those who deny global warming are just flat out wrong.
Ellen Goodman from the Boston Globe wrote, let's just say that global warming deniers are now on par with Holocaust deniers.
Somebody says that whenever you get into Nazi connections, you've really jumped the shark.
No Nazi references? But how would these people even form sentences? Even I got to jump into the World War II of weather. Robert F. Kennedy called me CNN's chief corporate fascism advocate. When asked why by the Washington Post, he recalled that I was voicing doubts about global warming a few weeks back.
When you have the science on your side, you argue the science. When you don't have the science on your side, you attack the messenger.
Look, it's practically in my job description to be called a fascist by people who hate my guts. But that's not what scientists sign up for. They're just trying to give their opinion based on the best information they can. But how can they, when the debate moves from science to their livelihood, or sometimes even worse?
Many times I've been tempted to say, why am I doing this? Why am I running my head into a concrete wall?
Tim Ball received a PhD in climatology from the University of London and spent his professional life under the radar as a professor at the University of Winnipeg.
If I had gone along with the prevailing wisdom, the funding would have been enormous. Instead, I'm accused of getting the money from the oil companies, which is simply a lie.
Whether you agree or not with what the other side says, the debate must not only be tolerated, it must be encouraged.
I think that the truth is absolutely paramount, and if we abandon that, we're lost. And I don't care if the people or the politicians choose to ignore me. That's their choice. But what I don't want is I don't want them to ever be able to come back and say we weren't told.
You are not going to believe this, but sometimes fear makes people act irrationally. Luckily, we have the media to put things into perspective because nothing ever gets overhyped on television. The truth is that a show like tonight's trying to cut through the hype isn't sexy. With global warming, the ratings are in the disasters and the media knows it. Severe storms, devastating hurricanes, and massive walls of sea pummeling major cities. These are the kind of extremes that movies like The Day After Tomorrow propagate about global warming. Even Jake